Hey, Steve.
Hey, Bret.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm good. I see you got the black memo.
The black memo. My whole, like every day is a black memo. I only have like black clothes. I have like 7 shirts and they're all black.
Is it like a Johnny Cash thing?
No, I wish it was. And I also wish it was like a Steve Jobs thing. It was just more my laziness. And I have this one shirt that I like a lot, so I bought a bunch of them. It's easier than thinking.
Hey, you got a uniform. Don't mess with it.
Got a uniform. Does sometimes when you're like, oh, really super compelled to work today, you just put on the uniform and you're like, okay, here I go. I'm doing it. Speaking of putting on the uniform.
Yeah, I mean, we've, is there anything related to that going on?
What the fuck is going on in Ukraine?
A whole lot of craziness.
You know, I think I really wanted to talk about Ukraine, and you did as well. And I think there's so many things that we could talk about, but, you know, I wrote an article yesterday, maybe the day before, a couple of articles about a company that we've worked with in Ukraine for a couple of years on social media marketing. They're called respect.studio. That's respect.studio. Check them out. And they're really good at social media marketing. And so it, for me, when, you know, the situation started to intensify in Ukraine, it felt really natural for me and Dana, our producer, who's not, you know, on video right now, but is listening as we record this. She was actually the first to reach out to Respect Studio and ask our account manager, are you okay? Do you need anything? And I thought that was a really nice moment. And I drafted behind it. And now we're in, you know, conversations with, you know, the folks at Respect Studio, just asking how we can help deliver aid to Ukraine. But it has not been lost on me that a lot of people in work tech and business owners from a shareholder perspective and all that stuff have mostly talked about Ukraine in the past as a great place to outsource, right? So what happens when you create a relationship with an outsourced partner in a place like Ukraine, where the quality of the work, you know, frankly, for social media marketing, the stuff that we're using them for, and I know that they're, you know a lot more about this than I do, but there's an amazing software startup culture there. There's been some unicorns come out of, you know, the work done in Ukraine. But what happens when you view a relationship as an outsourced relationship? Like it's almost kind of like interchangeable. And then there are countries attacked by Russia. And like, how do people respond to that? And I think that says a lot about the employee experience in a different perspective. Because I believe that if you, even when you're working with someone like in a contract relationship or an outsourced relationship, that you should still work with them like they're people, and you should still care about like what's happening in their lives. And I just wonder what the response has been from people who have, you know, kind of significant ties to Ukraine from an quote outsourced. If you can't see me, you're just listening on, you know, the treadmill. I'm using air quotes right now. Outsourced, you know, partners. Like, do they jump in and try to help, or do they try to, you know, find new partners as quickly as possible? That was a really dark way of answering that question, but what do you think?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, and I think that you're touching on something that is evolving in the way that at least tech companies work, and a lot of the companies in our ecosystem that we've seen this change since the beginning of 2020. I mean, before that, there was a lot of talk about in the U.S., well, and even other countries, you know, with Brexit, but talking about H-1B visas and rolling that back and not having as much immigration and allowing as much, you know, necessary tech talent to come into the United States. As, you know, we got into the pandemic, I think that there's always been this global, you know, kind of partner ecosystem that has grown, you know, exponentially over the last decade. But it feels like the relationship that companies are having with their global labor pool really is changing. I mean, it certainly has in our own company, but it seems like this whole idea of, oh yeah, we have this partner in fill in the blank country, and you don't really treat them like a real partner. It's just sort of a transactional, interchangeable, disposable relationship. And I suppose that there's companies that can do that and will still continue to do that, but that's not the way to get the best work. And it's also just kind of a shitty business practice.
Yeah.
And I think that we're starting to see that, especially when you have all of this conversation going on about the employee experience and how we are going to make this shift to the liquid workforce, where it's just like not everybody's an FTE. You have part-time, you have contract, you have this diaspora of labor within your organization. Everybody needs to have at least a similar employee experience, even if it's not identical. And so I think that light bulb is starting to go on.
Yeah.
But when you're in a situation like this, it's just sort of like, we've been in this global economy for 20, 25 years. And, we have relationships with people all over the world that we've worked with, either as partners, as clients. And you develop these real relationships over time, and it's easy to say, oh, it's, the world's flat and blah, blah, blah. But it's not very often that we've been in a situation where you call up your partner and there might be artillery landing all around them.
Well, I mean, the first note that we got, on the day of the invasion from our account manager at respect.studio, that's respect.studio in Ukraine. The first note that we got was from our account manager saying, we're going to keep working. Don't worry. I mean, it was like, we're going to continue filing reports. We're going to continue, we're going to keep working, as if, like if I'm sitting on their side of the desk in this virtual situation, step one, shore up your customers, right? If you want to maintain a going concern in a crisis. And I was just like, I get it. And how bold and courageous, that like the first thing that they do is try to assure us that there's not going to be an interruption of service while their country is being invaded by Russia. And of course we wrote back and said, hey, y'all be safe, and we're going to, don't worry about, the work, worry about your families. And, just like we would with our own people who need to take leave, it's like, of course we're going to pay you. Of course we're going to do all those things. But it was just so striking to me that the dynamics of a relationship like that seem so transactional, the way they've been built up. And we can do so much better. And I think that, people are moving in that direction, and they are, realizing that they have a responsibility, or at least some level of control over the employee experience that outsourced partners or contractors or whatever are having with their company. And that's not the way it used to be. And I'll just use another example that has nothing to do with Ukraine, but I think it's relevant. Like if you think about all the grocery delivery services and, the food delivery services, during the pandemic that we have used, Instacart employs tons of people, and everyone wants to tell these, really rose-colored stories about how great, the gig economy is and how much flexibility it creates for people. And folks love those jobs, and they make, tons of money, and, it's just a new way that the economy works. That's awesome. Then why is Instacart fucking striking like every 3 months? Because some policy change on their app, suddenly they have to like bundle orders, and they have to do like shop for 3 people simultaneously and only get one service, payment out of that. As competition increases and whatever. And the problem is no one owns the employee experience in that scenario. And if you take it even further, grocery stores don't actually want it. Restaurants don't want it because they don't have control of the customer experience. And so in come all of these like new companies that are kind of like PEOs that are buying the Instacarts of the world and buying the, food delivery services. And they are creating a true like employee experience for them, much the way that a PEO would providing better benefits, actually investing in communications and stuff like that. And I think, the point that I'm trying to make, which is I'm doing a terrible job, is that if you ever thought you could get out of the business of employee experience by outsourcing work or, hiring, an Uber driver or, an Instacart person or whatever, if you ever thought that you could give up on your responsibility for the employee experience and still create value for employees, customers, shareholders, and drive social good, how many more examples do we need that it doesn't work? And so if you have an outsourced partner in Ukraine, fucking send them body armor because that's what they need. It's like, don't just be like, oh, yeah, well, if you can't get me that report, then I'm going to go to, some other, port of call and find somebody else who can do it. Which I'm sure I'm creating a false dichotomy of like good and evil here, but it's like you have responsibility for the employee experience of everybody who has an impact on your customer experience and your shareholder experience. And if you don't take control of it, someone else will, and it's probably not going to be as good as you want it to be.
Well, and it's just like, it's sort of, to me, at least in the world of tech and services outsourcing, it's sort of become kind of a best practice that if you want to get good results from an outsourcing partner, you need to have real relationships, ongoing relationships with that outsourcing partner. And if you're going to be able to deliver the quality to your mutual customers, you can't just be, kicking somebody to the curb if, hey, we're under attack, we'll get that report to you an hour late. It's just, that's not only is it just a terrible employee experience, it's a bad customer experience too. But of course, as we know, those things are completely related. So yeah, I think that's, when you look at at kind of what's going on too in this specific situation, I mean, it's not unlike what we went through during the pandemic. It's just like your employees are going to evaluate, what did you do when the shit hit the fan?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where you really develop, a relationship.
Some of our partners in Ukraine are sleeping in office buildings, their homes have been destroyed. It's like anybody in the United States right now who's like, wow, the pandemic really sucks and we sure had a lot of problems. Think about what's going on in Ukraine right now. Like, people are displaced. People are, heading for the borders. They're handing out guns to civilians and the civilians are taking them. And I was serious about the body armor thing. Like, we are, and I know it's like, we're not supposed to talk about stuff like this, right? Because it's like political or weird or whatever. We are launching a campaign today to raise money to buy body armor and ship it to Ukraine, because when you ask Ukrainians what they need, they say guns and bullets and body armor. We can figure out the humanitarian aid and the food and all that stuff, but we need weapons and we need ways to protect ourselves. And you can't ship guns and ammo, right? But you can ship body armor up to a certain class of body armor, which is, going to be effective in a lot of situations. And, when you ask someone what they need and they tell you, whether it's your employee in Texas or, the team that you work with in Ukraine or whatever, you don't just like kind of giggle and say, oh, body armor, what a strange request. You fucking get them body armor. And, that's what we're doing, and I think that it speaks to the larger point of you create a great relationship and a great experience that benefits all pillars of, that kind of shared stakeholder experience by asking people what they need and then meeting their needs, acknowledging that needs might be different for different people at different times based on different circumstances. Right. And this is, of course, an extreme example. Right. It's, of course, an extreme example that, someone needs body armor. If they need fucking body armor, send them body armor. I don't know what else to say about that.
No, and it's just, this is a, a pop culture analogy to throw out there. But, you look at Ted Lasso. He comes into this club. He has all these people who hate him. He puts a suggestion box, and most of the suggestions are, go fuck yourself and things like that. But there's one, hey, the water pressure in the shower sucks. And he goes and he fixes that one thing. And that's the first step in a journey, if you can start fixing some of these little things, if you can start meeting these needs, you can start building a much more solid relationship with people. Now, granted, body armor is a little different than water pressure, but it's a step in the journey.
It depends on the day you're having.
Right.
But I think that a lot of this, where we are today, where, we have, partners in Ukraine, and the United States has moved aggressively towards an outsourced model and all that stuff. We have to look at the motivation and the relationship between shareholder experience and customer experience, employee experience, and social good to understand how these relationships work and how they don't work sometimes. And I believe that outsourcing, I truly believe this started as a way to increase profits and maintain shareholder power. I'm going to tell the story, and I'm going to eliminate all the names, but there's a very large professional, organization that manages, education and HR, and I will not say who that is. And I was at a place where I heard a speech from the person who runs that organization, and he was relaying a story of an employee who said, "Hey, I'd like to work from home because really my job can be done from anywhere." And his response was, "Well, if your job can be done from anywhere, I'm going to go find someone somewhere else who can do it for less." And I think that in a nutshell is the genesis of, how outsourcing began as an idea. Mm-hmm. It's a way to maintain power over employees instead of distributing power. And like everyone's freaking out now, like we're going to talk about the Great Resignation, right? Everyone's freaking out about the Great Resignation because from a shareholder perspective, they see it as an unprecedented amount of power in the hands of employees, and it scares the fuck out of them. And they don't have the judo moves of flowing with that, right, and seeing the good in it. Their mind is reaching, many shareholders, their mind is reaching for ways to basically either make it work to their benefit or to source labor in a different way, or to, change the social contract that they have with employees, or just do whatever they need to do for right now to get by until the old economy swings back around in their favor again and employers have all the power. But all these things are related because it's the, the motivation that drives why you make certain decisions that has the intended, though people would mostly say unintended, the intended consequences of creating the nature of the relationship. And that's what I think happens a lot of times with the way that we enter into outsourcing relationships. We don't enter into them, looking for the best people or a relationship or whatever. We enter into them looking for a way to not only get good stuff at a lower price, hey, but also reinforce our power over employees. Hey, I can always outsource your job. Look at this great team I've got in, Chile or whatever, And I use that as a specific example because we hire a lot of people in Chile, but we hire them as full-time employees, and they have the exact same employee experience that anybody who's working in the U.S. or Ireland or many of the other places where we have folks working has. And I think this is just a moment where you can kind of look at, if you were like, just give me a little background on like, how connected is work tech to Ukraine?
There's actually a lot of connections. There are a lot of outsourcing operations for rather large companies. GitLab actually was founded there, has a large operation there. SAP has a lot of coding and development people there. Grammarly, that I use every day, has a large team there. Anyway, there's a lot of development teams that, even if the company's not founded there, there's a heavy tech presence all throughout that country. Yeah. And so I think that what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of companies having to scramble to get employees out, relocate data centers, make sure that data is secure. It really is a pretty chaotic scene, but I was reading a story in the Wall Street Journal today about a tech company that offered to relocate. They had a team of 20. They're like, "Hey, we'll move you guys to Turkey. You can continue working from there." And they're like, "No, we're good. We're going to stay here."
Yeah.
you know, we'll keep working, but we're going to stay here. And I was just like, I just can't even imagine that.
Well, it's like the president of Ukraine said. Yeah. When Joe Biden said, hey, let's get you out, he said, I don't need a ride. I need bullets. I mean, that's the president of Ukraine. That was his response to Joe Biden. You know, and that's the spirit that I see there. But what do you think, you know, employers are doing in that situation where, you know, like I admit that I have a little, you know, kind of, what's the word? Cynical view a lot of times about the reasons that people approach certain employee experience initiatives. You know, sometimes, for instance, people might be trying to relocate teams so the teams can keep working, versus asking the teams what they need and providing that. And if, by the way, what they need is to not work for a while, so I don't know, they can fight a war. You know, if that doesn't enter the value equation for the employer, then that's not the type of help that they're willing to offer. So what's your perspective on, you know, how people are generally, are they looking at this as business risk, or are they, you know, really digging in and trying to figure out what people need and helping them?
Well, I mean, not having the full picture for all of these myriad situations, I can't say for sure. I mean, I think first and foremost, with every employer, you're getting kind of that duty of care obligation. Hey, you know, whether it's an employee in a war zone or in a earthquake or some sort of natural disaster, it is, how can I locate my employees, know where everybody is, and then move them to safety? Yeah. And then after that, you know, that has to be your first and foremost obligation. Then second, business continuity. I think that it's, you know, because of the nature of this conflict and all of the cybersecurity ramifications, and the fact that, you know, you have companies that have large data centers, they have large development labs. There's a significant intellectual property risk. There's a business continuity risk that can't be understated, that I think goes above and beyond anything we've really experienced in previous conflicts before, because of there's an entire digital front to this war that really we're dealing with for the first time, which is one of the things that makes this a global conflict, you know? So, and I think that we're all very much in uncharted territory, but I think that you've seen people the world over have their hearts go out to the people of Ukraine, not only with wanting to help out, but having just kind of deep admiration for how they are approaching this incredibly dire situation with such resilience. It really is, you know, you don't really get to use the word admiration very often in its proper context, but I think this is one of those times.
I agree. And I really do. I mean, it's profoundly inspiring and devastating at the same time to me. And I agree with everything that you said. You know, in terms of the way that people are going to approach, you know, the obligations they have to care, and then thinking about business continuity, which, you know, I know a lot of organizations feel like they have to prioritize that. I understand that. You know, the only nuance that I would add is, you know, it's like build your company to be future proof. And one of the ways to do that is to, you know, be able to support people for a year or two through a difficult time. Because imagine the different type of relationship that you're going to have a year from now with your, you know, Ukrainian partner, if you stuck with them and helped them, and it wasn't a quid pro quo, and you were doing it for all the right reasons. Because these is literally, it's one of the most powerful tech centers in the world, some of the most talented people in the world, for specifically what we do in work tech. Versus, hey, business is business. Had to move to a new, you know, partner because we needed to get the work done, and totally understand that you had to, you know, sleep in a basement for the last 6 weeks and didn't have, you know, reliable internet. But at the end of the day, business continuity, you know, and it's like, if you are so up against the wall that you can't support a few people, you know, for a long period of time, then you've made other decisions. And we've been in that situation, right? We're in a different situation now, but we've run that business.
Right.
Where, there was no margin for error and there was no margin to take care of folks. But I will say 100% that was all my fault, wasn't their fault. I made bad business decisions because I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm getting better at it. And I just feel like, doing the right thing is always the right thing. And sometimes it's counterintuitive to what seems to be the right decision for business continuity or, whatever.
So question for you, as you're evaluating the situation, number one, how can people, are ones of listeners out there who might want to do something? What can they do? B, what are the things that you're thinking about as a business partner? And I guess number three, what are the things that are going through your mind that you're just like, I don't know what to do?
About Ukraine specifically, or
about our partner at respect.studio.
Yeah. Okay. So unpack it, walk it through the respect.studio.
Respect.studio.
We'll drop their URL in the description. Unpack.
What can people do to help? What can people do to help? Number one.
Well, this is what I did. So I want to be really clear that I'm not like just, spewing some shit. I reached out to about 20 people that I know in Ukraine, and I said, what can we do to help? So number one, find somebody to ask, or if you can't, find somebody who knows somebody who has asked. And to a T, everyone that I asked said the same thing: money and body armor. And I know it sounds strange and funny and all that stuff to say that, like in the context of, like supposedly a business podcast or whatever, but it's like, everyone's like, we need stuff that helps us defend ourselves. We can get food, we can get all the humanitarian aid and all that stuff, but they're sold out of body armor, all across Europe. So if you can, this is not unlike moments during the war in Afghanistan or Iraq, where the United States was poorly equipped and soldiers were buying their own equipment on Amazon, or their family was shipping them better boots or better armor. You remember the famous Donald Rumsfeld moment where a soldier said, we tied a refrigerator door to our Jeep because our vehicle is not armored. What are you going to do about that? So that's what's going on in Ukraine right now, is that their army just swelled to include most of the population of the country because people don't want to leave and they don't want to give it up. And there's not enough, weapons and bullets and body armor to go around. So number one is they want body armor. Number two is they want money because they can use that money to buy guns, ammo, and body armor. And so, the things that you can do on that level, there's a list. I'll post it again, but I wrote an article yesterday or the day before that has a list of 5 or so causes that were recommended to me directly from people that I know and work with in Ukraine, that were for like the national bank that's collecting money for the military, some humanitarian groups that have been set up for a long time to send aid to Ukraine. So we'll drop those places to donate money, into the description. But if you are in the position of going to a military surplus store, which every city has one, right? If you are in the position of going to a store that sells body armor, and if you are in the position of having someone to ship it to, that is the fastest thing that you can do to actually get them, the stuff that they're asking for the most. So, I live in Texas. There's a gun store on every corner. Gun stores love preppers, and preppers love body armor. So you can go in and buy some, class 3, class 4. Well, you can't necessarily buy class 4. You can buy some really good body armor, just by walking in. And we're personally not, as a company or me as an individual, providing ammunition or anything like that because, there are issues associated with shipping that, but also falling into the wrong hands. If body armor falls into the wrong hands, at least someone got saved, and all human life is precious. So sending body armor and, it being confiscated or whatever, if someone is using it, good enough for me. I wish I hope that most of it gets to Ukraine. We're sending a lot. I hope most of it gets to Ukraine. But if some of it doesn't, at least it's different than losing a gun or, like losing,
right.
People are going to freak out when they hear this shit, but this is the truth. So you ask people what they need, and then when they tell you, you figure it out. So I've been working with a guy who is married to one of our people here in the States. I know you know who I'm talking about, who has a lot of experience in supply chain management for weapons, and he knows where to get all the body armor and how to get it to Ukraine. And so that's what we're doing. So what was number 3? It was,
well, I have a follow-on question to that. Because you have a master's degree in criminology, and I know you know these kind of things. What are the legalities of exporting body armor?
So it is legal to ship body armor up to Class 3A anywhere in the world. No, it doesn't run foul of any international regulations or any domestic. You can totally walk into a surplus store, buy a Class 3A body armor, and ship it to your friend in Ukraine using UPS. Now, right now, UPS and places like that are not shipping to Ukraine, so they're mostly shipping to Poland or something like that. People are picking it up and driving it across the border. When you get into Class 4 or 5 body armor, you have to go through a licensed contractor, and that's usually the military ordering directly from a wholesaler or something like that. But that stuff you don't want to do. But most of the stuff that you can buy, at an Army surplus store or, in your local gun shop or whatever, is going to be pretty effective against small arms fire, against, shrapnel from mines and stuff like that. It will not be effective against the rifled rounds, at relatively close or mid range. And so it's not the best, but, you wouldn't want it on the front lines, but 3A would be really good as a civilian walking around in a place that might get bombed, and you might take some shrapnel. This will save your life, and that's totally legal to send. Of course, as always, do your own research. DYOR. None of this should be construed as legal advice, but we've been doing a lot of research on it, and we're even raising money to help send more. And, we might get some lawyers involved just in case, just as a,
Oh, sure. Why not? Well, one more follow-on question, because I think you answered the first two as part of this. What are the things that you're, as a business partner, just I don't know, or you're struggling with, or you wish you could do better, or you're still in real time trying to figure out?
With Ukraine specifically?
Yeah, with respect to our partners and being a good partner to our partners.
I'm not, it's a great question because, I have to say, and I think that all of us would be in the same situation. If it feels right to me, then I just assume that it's going to feel right to the partners. And I would assume, and I hope that you feel that way. And so, I guess if I had a concern, it's, how I can get, right? I get really focused and wrapped up in something, and, I would hate to, in any way do something that offended the, sensibilities of my partners. But I don't worry too much about that because this seems pretty straightforward. I mean, we've got a team in Ukraine and they need help. And every time that any of us has, come to any partner and said, there's someone in our business that needs help, everyone always says, well, what do they need and how do we get it to them? No one says, for instance, well, how have they been performing lately? How, is this an opportunity to part ways with them? No, I mean, it's just, that's not the way that we think. So I guess that I feel very fortunate to be in a situation where that never entered the consideration set. But I'll put the question back to you. What do you think?
Well, and I think that you misunderstood my question a little bit. When I was talking about our partners, I was talking about Respect.studio, our extended partner family.
Oh, I thought you meant the shareholders in our business.
No, because I think we're all very, very much in alignment with all of this, and so I don't have any concerns about that. I think you have a pretty good read on that part of the business. But I'm just thinking about when because let's face it, you probably never encountered this in your business life of we have an outsourced partner that is in the middle of a war zone. What do we do?
No. And so the question again is, what more could we do to help, or where am I struggling?
What are you trying to figure out in real time, I guess?
I'm just trying to figure out what they need and how to get it to them. That's all. Okay, we
can fix all this in post.
No. Okay, this should all not get fixed in post because, I think having this conversation is the most important part. And I can't presume to know what they need. And this is we should all take this to heart. No one should ever presume to know what another human needs. But in a situation like this, you really can't presume, what people need. And a lot of times, these big NGOs and stuff like that will get involved, and they've got their visions and their mandates and all that stuff. And they can kind of steer the conversation in a way, not intentionally, but because of what their mandate is or their mission, that causes everyone to believe that, as an example, what, Ukrainians need is food. And then everyone would be like donating to, places to deliver food to Ukraine. That is not what they're saying. And so I don't really feel like there's a struggle other than, whatever they need to keep their business operating, if that's important to them. Right. So, and it will be important to them until it is not, or it will remain that way. And just to be really frank, we're going to keep paying our bills. Don't care if we get any work. Don't care how long that lasts, because we would do that for our employees as well. And so, that's step one, is just ensuring the survival of a really good company that they've put together for, the period that's important to them. And then the second is, on a personal level, what do individuals need? And again, I hate to keep saying it, but it all comes down to, no one is saying, give me money. Everyone is saying the best thing that you can do is donate to these 5 places in Ukraine. And it's all about, getting stuff to their army and getting stuff to, civilian militia groups, because, Grace, who is, part of a 1-person audience today, because she wrote this in the notes today, said that women and children are leaving and their husbands and boyfriends and dads are staying behind. And that's true. I've heard that firsthand, that a lot of people are walking their families to the border and they're turning around and walking back. Right. And so no country is ready to outfit everyone in, the defensive, stuff or the offensive stuff that they need to wage war at that level. And so I don't, I'll keep asking. And when they come up with something else, we'll, do what we can. And I would just say that anyone who hears this or reads, the articles that we're writing or whatever, do whatever you can. Like a lot of it, I've talked to people here who are a little worried about donating money online because, it's always tough for people. But suddenly, you're going to like a, Ukrainian website and it, like if you're trained as a U.S., knowledge worker, you're like, this looks like a phishing website or something like that, right? Because, imagine the experience they have looking at our websites, and so I would just say, like, find some vetted sources. It's not going to feel comfortable from a user experience perspective when you donate, but know that these are the ones that we're listing are the ones specifically that a group of people who we've worked with since 2020 in Ukraine have said, these are the ones. And I've not heard any stories of like, and I'm really surprised by this. Maybe you have widespread, corruption of people setting up like fake sites or stuff like that. Normally, I would expect to see a lot of that, but have you seen stuff like that?
Not yet, but there's always going to be opportunists. It'll definitely happen.
Yeah,
it happened during COVID.
Yeah, in this like pure moment of early invasion, because I don't think Putin fucking knows what he got into.
Right.
Which, I mean, makes me so happy. But in these early moments, I think there are a few sources that if you check, you'll see they've been written about by major news outlets that that they're the real deal and they've been around for a long time. They weren't just set up in the last, like week or so. And go ahead and take that step and donate that money. They want cash, they want credit, and they want crypto. And, too little time left to talk about crypto and the role that, cryptocurrency plays here, both on the good side and the bad side. But if you happen to have crypto, that's the easiest and fastest way to get money into the hands of the Ukrainian government. Their crypto addresses are posted on the national bank, and they're taking Ethereum and Bitcoin and a few other coins. So for all you crypto kings and queens out there, if you got a bag, and you know what I'm talking about, if you got a bag, open it up and send some to the addresses that we'll post in our description, because they're the same addresses that have appeared in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal and BuzzFeed, and are on the website of the National Bank in Ukraine and a couple of the humanitarian organizations. So this is an open your wallet kind of moment, in my opinion. And of course, we're biased because we have a team there, but it seems, bigger than that as well at the same time. And I don't know why, and I think a lot of people are going to be talking about that for a long time, but I know there's some dynamics here.
Well, Bret, thank you for figuring all this out for us and shedding some light on it. And thanks for everything that you do and for having a good heart.
Oh, thank you. We need to give thanks to our Irish friend.
and I'm sure we will in this this month of Irish American Heritage. So,
all right,
off we go. Anyway, I have a hard stop. I apologize, Bret Starr.
Hard stop. Even podcasters have hard stops.
Yes, exactly. I would love nothing more than continue the conversation. But thank you as always for an interesting conversation. And
we'll get to the Great Resignation. Yeah, we'll get to the Great Resignation.
Great Resignation will still be great next week.
Still will. All right, I'm pressing stop.